Okay, good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, unless you're on the East Coast, then it's lunchtime and beyond for you. I'm happy to see everybody here today. I'm really getting in the zone of delivering this midlife dating content as I've been doing the matchmaking now since I think I started it in August last year, and it's really been just a remarkable experience to transmit what I know in this space, having traveled this road myself many, many times and interviewed a lot of people who are in this world, and I'm just really happy to download this to you. And today, once I get through just delivering the content, I really want you guys to talk to me about what your situation is, because that's always so useful to everyone to be able to hear real life circumstances, and then we can pull it apart and we can see how we find ourselves in these situations, how we find ourselves stuck. And that's what my hope is, to make happen, that you can kind of move the needle today and really take something away with you. I want you to have something really substantial, or at least a tangible piece. If you come away with one working tool, I will be extremely happy, because we only need one new piece of information or one more tool that can really make a significant difference in what's happening in not only our dating life, but our life, because it's all connected, as you know. But let's take just a couple moments to go inward for a moment. Let's just for a moment, let's just take a deep breath in and let our eyes close just for a moment or two here as we go inward and begin to just notice our breath. Because when we follow our breath and just pay attention to it, we can immediately establish presence and turn off the monkey mind, if we will. And I would like you to all just really focus on receiving today, no matter what you know or what you don't know. Just come to it with an open heart and just an open idea, like, okay, maybe I've heard some of this before, maybe I haven't, but I'm gonna hear the progression of the offering and see if there are dots that can connect for me. Okay. So just take another deep breath in, put your attention up behind your eyes. We want to come out of the lower chakras, just come up behind our eyes, the control tower, and let's just receive from that vantage point. Okay, I'm gonna jump right in here, because I want you guys to have plenty of time to ask questions or talk about your circumstance, and see if we can really make some change here today, or get it started for you, or add to your life. So let's start at the beginning. I thought it would be really good to just start at the beginning of our relationship life. I mean, we're not going into family yet, even though that's significant. Actually, I'm going to also open my chat box before I forget. So if you want to chat me up at some point, you can. There we go. Okay. When we are ready to partner, whether it's teenager years or in our 20 somethings, whatever, we are eager, we are ready. We aren't thinking about red flags and green flags and attachment dismissive disorders and narcissistic tendencies. We aren't thinking about any of that. We're just ready to go out and make it happen. We're eager, we are hungry, we're somewhat fearless, even if we are afraid, we just plow forward. And really, we're somewhat blind to the nature of relationships. And of course, we're hormonally activated. This is a physiological time in life when we are pushed. Procreation is at its height. And for women in our teenage years and early 20s, it's like our bodies are most likely to get pregnant, right? And so we have all that pressure physiologically to go out there and make it happen. And, and it's that transition from childhood to adulthood, and we're just wanting to spread our wings and feel our independence and our strength. And so we just go out in the world and we make it happen. I mean, we just make it happen and we connect with people. Now, look at there are exceptions. I'm going to speak in generalities today. So if you're not exactly fitting in to what I'm talking about, we'll piece it all together for you along the way. But this is the general path that we're all taking. We're like, I want a relationship. I want to feel grown up. I want the connection. I want my independence, et cetera, et cetera. And then we move on to the stage where we will meet someone. I mean, maybe we'll meet a number of someones before we finally commit to a marriage, let's say, and we'll use that as a measure. And marriage doesn't have to be before a priest saying I do, but where you fully committed to someone in your heart and it's your intention to be with them. So we meet, we're falling in love, and we internally commit to make things work and live that happily ever after ideal that we're taught about. That women are, we've read in our fairy tale books. Okay. And we do our best. We're not perfect, but we're being honest. We're doing our part to show up to the best of our ability, what we know about relationships, and we're chugging along until something happens. Some of you may be widowed. Some of you may have had some other circumstance, but at some point, the relationship blows up. And that's why I have this picture of this woman here over the car engine. Her engine has blown up and she doesn't really know what to do. And so I think we all have that moment where we know something is not working here. My life is not working. My relationship is not working. And I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to try and survive this moment. So then we pick up the pieces, and our pieces are a mess usually when we restart our life for any reason. Doesn't matter the reason. It is difficult to pick up our life and start over. And I use the 52 pickup sticks, that game. At least when I was a kid, we played this. Some of you may be too young to remember that, but the pieces are all over the place. And we're going to do our best to restack the pieces so that we can get up on two legs again and come at life. But it's a lot of work. It's not just because our mind knows that this relationship is over with XYZ person. The rest of our life does not operate from an analytical mental point of view. We have a cellular memory. We have habits that have been ingrained into our unconscious mind at this point, and it just takes a long time to restart our life. And typically from a divorce or even a death, average, and sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, not always. It takes a good 3 years for most people to put their life back on track. It doesn't mean that some people don't get back in relationships sooner than that, but then they usually, I won't say you regret it, but then you haven't done enough time to actually reorient to make sure you don't repeat patterns, but we'll move on to that. So we're in the pickup pieces section. And then when this happens, this is really our first opportunity as adults to understand what has happened. We followed the rules. We were honest. We did what we thought was the very best thing we could do. We made the best choices we could make, and it didn't work out. Now, this is the moment where a lot of us maybe will go right back into another relationship, or maybe we'll spend some time in therapy, or maybe we'll do something to try and understand what happened. And I would say this is when that first breakdown happens. This is where we are. But here's where we actually are when the breakdown has happened. We come face to face with whatever our self-awareness is. And self-awareness is not taught to most of us, or it's in short supply. It's a limited awareness. We're not taught to really understand our system. We are really motivated externally. Get good grades in school, go to college, get a job, make a salary, contribute to your 401k. And if you do those things, you're on track. And those things are all good. Those are all wonderful things. But that's not self-awareness. Those are external motivations. And the things that end up causing us trouble in our relationship space and moving forward, especially post 40, is all internal. So we don't really have a true awareness or understanding about what creates the relationship or why we're even drawn to certain people. You know, you certainly hear these stories of people who are with someone who treats them really poorly. They get out of a relationship and they're right back in with someone who's the same thing. They're controlling, or they're abusive, or they're drug addicts, or they don't work, or whatever it is. You keep finding yourself with the same type of people. Why is that? Well, why are we drawn to that? We'll talk about that in a bit. And when we've had that ending in our life and we're recreating, we often lack the coping skills to fully heal. And some of us will even resist our healing journey and will just learn to survive it. And so we can't really start anew because we haven't really healed and we don't know how. Or there is some stigma on whether or not we're going to get therapy or go down some path of self-discovery that someone might tease us about or tell us we're ridiculous or something like that. And we don't get the self-awareness or the healing that we need to truly press restart and move forward. And then from there, we're driven by our wounds. We're driven by our emptiness. And some of that may have already been there, depending upon your childhood, but that ends up, we're just sort of remain in this organic state that is attracting to it and driving us down a road. It's like we're driving half blindfolded. And then at the same time, we may still have a desire for partnership and love, but we don't have the same eagerness, or it's driven by something other than eagerness. It's driven by I'm not enough, or what will people think if I'm not partnered, or something's wrong with me if I can't get married again, or whatever on that spectrum. And so the optimism is sort of tainted by a compulsion that's not just in the joy of partnership. And we're still blind in some ways, but not blind because we've had experience now. And experience has taught us that connection is not safe. It's taught us that we can't trust ourselves, or we're completely hyper-focused on the other person. Oh, I had to get out of that marriage because so-and-so was a narcissist, or so-and-so was a drug addict, or so-and-so was this, that, or the other. And look, I'm not ever saying you should stay with someone if they have addictions or affairs or abuse, but I'm saying as long as we're saying the marriage ended because of that other person, that's the first thing we have to look at. We have to always be looking at, well, why was I attracted to that in the first place? So there may still be some blindness about how we're attracting. The hormones, that's not going to be nearly as profound as they were when we were younger. Or we're not going to be as single focused as we were when we were younger. And so we're not just going to be jumping into things. Maybe we have a career now. Maybe we have children. There could be so many reasons that we're just not as gung-ho as we once were. And nothing kind of substitutes for that energy you have when you're young to just get out there blindly and make something happen. And again, I said our trust has been shattered. And if we already had shaky trust for whatever reason, if we already had shaky self-awareness, or our coping mechanisms were not good, it only compounds and it picks up momentum. And so this is what I see most often in my couples and in my people dating, is that they meet someone and within a very short period of time, suddenly they are in the thick of it. They're in the throes of these problems, even though they had this amazing connection and they're like, the first month, this is my soulmate. This person's incredible. And I finally found the one. And then by about month 3, suddenly we're right in the thick of the issues. So this is what's required when you want to navigate midlife dating And this is what you have to develop in yourself. And these are the things you have to focus on. Not that you can't be online dating, not that you can't hire a matchmaker, me or someone else, not that you can't do any of that stuff. But absent doing these things, it can still be extremely problematic. That we must develop a more accurate self perception of how we're showing up in the world and what our beliefs are that we're holding. What's in our operating system? What are we coming at our circumstances with? And then what are we presenting to the world? And I think if anything in online dating, what I've learned from the clients I work with is teaching them how to present, that many do not present as they actually are and they don't even know it. I often will have people send me a profile and say, send me the profile you have, and I read it and I go, who is this? This is not you. Who is this? So that is extremely important that we really work on that self-perception. And then as we press forward, we have to learn to take intentional action, even when not taking action. So that's confusing, and let me explain. That if we've been single a long time, especially, or if we've been dating for a while and haven't found the one, we've gotten in a habit that's not really working for us because we're either becoming serial daters with not good outcomes, or we're going further and further away from being willing to engage in relationships. And it's either end of the spectrum, they create the same outcome that you're not really getting where you're trying to go. So you have to accept that you need to be intentional about the actions you take. And if you haven't been dating for a while, for instance, and you really want to partner or explore if partnership is something you do want, because sometimes people choose to stay single and they're perfectly happy with that, but you're going to have to do something, and you're going to have to do it on purpose because it's highly unlikely it's just going to happen in later life if you don't take action. Why? Because everybody's in the same boat. Everybody has already had a life. Everybody has been hurt. Everybody has been disappointed. Everybody's had their heart broken once, twice, 10 times. Everybody has all stirred up inside and trying to deal with their life and everything else. And that's what our dating pool is in midlife. So the more intentional we can be and the more present we can be, then we can move into this next thing, which is understanding masculine and feminine energy and the acceptance of our natural roles, the rules of the roles. And they play out so much more in midlife than in early life. But essentially, feminine energy is more the playful, the nurture, the creative energy. It wants to feed to it or draw to it. The masculine wants to give to, it wants to fix and solve. And we have to understand these natural roles, and most of us do not. And typically, I see women, and I was guilty of this for a long time, hyper controlling, has to have everything our way, a lot of expectations. So and so needs to do this. And the rule book goes out the window in midlife. And if you try to use a rule book on a midlife man, I'm telling you, good luck, because it's a short-lived experience. Because most men who will survive a divorce, and divorce is often much harder on men than it is women. But when a man survives a divorce, he survives it. Women tend to do a lot of personal development. Women tend to learn more. Women become better and better and better and better and better as we age because we continue to develop ourselves. The large majority of men do not. Now, I have a handful of men in my circle who are that way. But for the most part, men don't keep developing, or they'll develop enough just to survive the moment they're in. But once they're not in writhing pain anymore, they stop developing, right? So, but what happens to a man after a divorce is they're very reticent to ever partner again. If they're going to partner, they'll usually do it within 2 years of marrying, or they don't do it for a very, or divorcing, excuse me, or they don't do it for a long, long, long time, because the level of not only the pain that happened to them, they feel like they failed. So you're dealing with a very specific pattern in a large population of men. So the rule book goes out of the window, because once they find that they can be okay and they've made their way in the world, they're not going to let anybody push them around anymore. They're not going to play any of those expectation games. That what they're doing has to really be driven by true feeling, true desire, and really seeing the potential in a partner. And that's the role of the feminine, to help the masculine, and this is for same sex, opposite sex, to help them see the pathway. That's the ends up being the woman's role. And I wrote about this extensively in the Energy of Abundance in my relationship section, that the feminine energy is the leader in this area. Because if we show the masculine, the feminine, and the pathway, if they're into us, they will follow. But the rule book, it goes out the window. And it has to then be driven upon true feeling and connection. And this is what I work on most with my women love coaching clients, is operating from their own inner navigation as opposed to the rule book. And wait a second. Just because it doesn't mean there aren't never any rules. I'm not saying everything goes, like someone can treat us in a certain way. No, obviously, abuse, affairs, addictions, no. Nastiness, no. But I'm talking about the rules. Oh, he needs to call in a certain amount of time. He needs to do this, or she, as the case may be. No, it wants to be driven by what true connection actually is. And certainly in the beginning, most people understand consideration, and if they're really interested in you at that moment or interested in pursuing you, they're going to be more attentive than otherwise. But because of this, it requires a lot of patience and determination. I mean, we do have to be patient with ourselves and with others. And especially if you watch any social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or whatever, you see a lot of younger women giving relationship advice, which may work for some younger populations in a limited way, but it's all, oh, don't put up with that, and don't you stand for that. And if he doesn't do this, then you'd better cut him out. And, okay, it doesn't work in midlife. You can't do that. I mean, you can, but you're going to be single. Okay. It has to be based from connection. And this up here for my purple slide, if you don't have self-awareness, and if your whole life has been externally validated and motivated, that's going to be a chore for you to develop that ability to know your own thoughts, feelings, and when a connection is actually real and valid to you. So you have to be patient, and you have to be determined, and know that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And what's this all getting to? It's getting to that you have to learn to be vulnerable again, because vulnerability is what causes connection to happen. And vulnerability doesn't just mean sex, especially for women. Yeah. And there's no judgment about when or why or how you have sex necessarily, but vulnerability, emotional vulnerability, is something altogether different. And when we speak truthfully from a vulnerable place, that's where a connection happens. And what I see a lot in the online dating world, especially with men, is they're wanting to go fast, 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 fast. Let's get you off the app. Let's get you out to the restaurant. Let's get you, and that's fine and good on one level, except it takes time for the emotional body to develop, especially post-divorce or post-trauma of any kind. It just takes time. And, if there's any place worth going, you want to go there slowly. So we have to learn and learn how to be vulnerable and what it takes. I was talking to a client the other day who's having a great time with her match. And then her worry is, oh, he's going to leave me. And I have a great story about that in a minute. But my whole point was, well, if you're feeling too afraid right now because it's gone too fast between us. Don't be afraid to slow it down. You don't have to see him 5 days a week. You're allowed to say, I'm a little tired tonight. Let's take a break. I'll see you day after tomorrow. And I get this idea, well, what if he's upset, or what if well, then he's not your person. You need someone who can be responsive to your needs in that way. So we have to learn how to be vulnerable and to make ourselves safe in that vulnerability so that we can have true connections. And this is all around releasing the idea of expectation as a measurement of whether or not you're with the right person. That goes out the window in midlife dating. And then this is another reminder about understanding the opposite sex or energy in this type of life, that women are truly, or feminine energy is the leader, that we have vision, we see, we can understand all the elements. And if we can show our person of interest the path and what it looks like, and we do so not in a controlling way, but through modeling in our behavior and sometimes the addition of conversation, they'll see the vision too, and they will follow. A lot of times, if it just makes sense to someone, they're going, okay, it makes sense. I can go this way. It makes sense. It feels good. It's comfortable to my system. It's when we're forcing and pushing and controlling and trying to make happen that people get uncomfortable and they push back. And then we just have to continue our healing. And is it ever done in this lifetime? I don't know. I mean, there's always more to do on varying levels and dimensions, however far you want to get into that. But it's an ongoing thing that we're an ecosystem, and every little thing that happens in our ecosystem touches something else. And we have to be able to adjust as we are impacted by life. And so that's that presence and remaining intentional. So even when we're not actively dating or pursuing a relationship, we're taking action with our own system. Where am I in my life process? How am I feeling about myself in relationship to my life? What thoughts am I embodying to be true? What am I holding to be true and running my script in my head? And then, of course, I don't know why I put this last, but it is likely the most important. We just have to radically love ourselves, and we have to radically forgive ourselves for what we don't know. And I think because of this number two up here, where we have been externally, certainly in Western culture, everything is an external achievement. We're motivated to get things, have things, be something, know someone, get somewhere, acquire something. And that's how we measure our success. And there's nothing wrong with those activities, but they often they supersede our ability to know ourselves and care for ourselves. And so we have to forgive ourselves for what we didn't know, for the choices that we made that didn't take us where we thought they might want to. And we have to love ourselves through it. We have to stop judging ourselves and criticizing ourselves for what we aren't, or what we don't have, or where we haven't gotten. And that practice of unconditional love and forgiveness has to be an ongoing part of our process so that we can continue to grow. And that when we go out into the world, we are expressing that same sense of love and forgiveness in general. Because if we're not caring towards ourselves on a very deep level, when people meet us, because when we meet, we're usually connected by our unconscious, which is what draws us to people, by the way. Our unconscious mind is what makes someone familiar to us and like, oh, they're attractive, but they will pick up, oh boy, this person's going to be rough on me. If they're that hard on themselves, I can only imagine how hard they're going to be on me. And again, it's not conscious, but it's an energy thing. People feel that. And so this ability to be loving towards self and forgiving towards self, that's the everything is connected thing. You just want to spread that around, and it starts with you. And I find with most of my clients, this is lacking. And I would say I work on this myself, but this is so critical. And I'm going to round it out here before I let you guys tell me your stories, is that It's unconscious who we are attracted to. It's unconscious. And as we get further into midlife, and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had recently where people are telling me so and so reminds me of this of my mother and this of my father, or it's bringing out this response that I used to do when I was 10. You have to understand that most of us were not modeled, or we were modeled how relationships work. And depending which generation your parents came from, it used to just be, when my parents, I'll just use myself as an example, the woman stayed home. 75% of women stayed home when I was a child, and then would later go into the workforce, maybe. And, 25% are in the workforce. I mean, and you think birth control only happened in the 1950s. That's not very long ago. But it used to be, can he pay the mortgage? That was the criteria for a good partner. It's not the criteria anymore. Now we want a soulmate, a best friend, someone who highlights all of our strengths, who can support us in all things. And we don't know how to do it because we were modeled something that was very traditional. You just hang in there no matter what. No matter how miserable you are, there's no exit. That's just the way it is. And certainly this idea of childhood wounding and, that you pick someone because they remind you of your father or your mother, this is all new. This is all new psychology, new science. And so even though we have it in our brain, it has not yet really fully sunk into our physiology. And it takes a couple of generations for this type of awareness to really start to seep into culture in a way where it becomes more automatic. So we're somewhat the transitional generations here as it becomes more commonplace to think about these things. And so on a side note, it's actually a good thing that we see all these videos on TikTok and Instagram talking about avoidant attachment disorders and this and that. I mean, they're usually misguided, but at least the conversations are being had at a very young age for people now. When I was in my 20s, I had never even heard of such a thing, right? So it lets you know that things are changing. But my point ultimately is that we choose unconsciously. And this is why I find matchmaking or what I'm doing so useful, because I've been guilty of this. I am great in relationship, but I've had a lot of difficulty picking. And so that's how I got to the point where I kind of stopped picking because I realized I need to get out of the way. I'm kind of my own worst enemy because if you've had childhood wounding, especially, and depending on the severity of it, and then you went into relationship after relationship, you've reinforced a lot of unconscious programming that's not working for you. And so even though your mind is saying, oh, I'm not going to be with someone who's abusive, I'm not going to be with someone who does drugs, I'm not going to be with someone who has this, that, or the other problem, the conscious mind is not as powerful as the unconscious mind unless you're really intentional and you're really paying attention and you can rewrite the script and kind of seeing it play out before you. Right? So I think this is the piece that is so challenging in midlife. And the answer that I have found, because I met my partner over 3 years ago on a dating site. It took a lot. And I won't say it's been like all flowers and hearts, but I've really had to come into my feminine. And I really have had to learn patience. And I've really had to learn understanding for what my male counterpart has gone through. And just statistically, how it works for men versus how it works for women. And because I have been able to develop myself in that way, it's been able to continue and thrive and get better and better. But I think what also happens to people who've been through challenging childhoods is that we have had to dance around a lot of landmines all through childhood to maintain the love in our hearts for our caregivers. And so when we get out in life, we see people and become familiar, and we see the red flags, but we don't mind them because we know them so well. Like, oh, that's a piece of cake. I did that for 5 years with my parents, or 10 years, or 20 years, right? And so our sensing system has sort of been muted to our own biofeedback. And so this process of radical self-love and forgiveness is kind of a reawakening. We're reawakening our sensing system and learning to honor it. And it's no small feat. It is no small feat. But if we don't even know that this is what's happening, and we don't get in the game of realiving ourselves and coming back to aliveness with our sensing system and understanding the truth of our feminine versus masculine energy, then it's just a harder time of it. And we can get thrown off track. We can remain single for a long time. And granted, there is no relationship status that is right or perfect. Anything goes at this time in life. Anything. It's really what you desire. But one of my clients right now, I've worked with in matchmaking, is in her 70s, and it's a beautiful thing. And people still want to have sex. People still want to be in love. People still are nervous and afraid, and people's childhood crap still plays out. Okay. But you can still find it from any time. So there, as long as you have an open heart and a willing spirit, and you want it, it can happen. But you have to be aware of all these things and what you have to be doing for yourself. Okay, I've thrown a lot at you, as I always do, but now I'm going to take myself out of it, except to kind of help you. So ask yourself these questions. What is it you are experiencing currently? Do you even know what you want? Because I can tell you, I match made with someone about 2 months ago. I gave her exactly what she asked for. Exactly. And then she said, I'm not ready. So, do you know what you want? What are you afraid of? What's holding you back? What don't you know? What do you need help with? Oh, okay. I'm going to talk to the iPad. I don't know who's on the iPad. Okay, iPad. Okay, did I unmute you, iPad? I can't tell. iPad. Oh, the iPad. They went off. Let me pull you back in. Ask to, no, not you. Zoom. Just flip it. The iPad. Ask to unmute. Did you unmute, iPad?
Phyllis, I'm not the iPad, but can you put that slide back up with the questions? Because I was writing
Oh,
them.
yeah. Let me go back to here we go.
I am the iPad, Phyllis. Florence here.
Oh, okay. Hi, Florence.
Hi, everyone. Oh my God. You answer all the questions that I had before you jump to the next line. But what I learned just now is that there is a midlife dating book.
Yes.
Okay. Um, I'm ready. My soul is ready. I was single by choice after a madly in love to a T manifested gentleman who didn't last because other reasons that were not in my list to manifest. I learned directly the power of intention. So I'm very careful. I want to acknowledge what you said about men move or want to move fast at this age group. And yes, it's true. We're too old to wait. We're going to waste time. Well, you're a stranger to me, and so am I to you. I cannot just kiss you, French kiss, on our second date. My emotional, just like you said, momentum is not built up. My emotional body is not connected to yours. Could it been on the second, third date, first date? Yes, but that's the flag to tell me he ain't it. So move to the next without saying I'm not worthy, it's useless, or whatever. And when we say we're ready, we need to also don't be afraid of being ready. Just like your matched client, I think I would look at this way. Yeah, I may be ready, but I'm afraid for being ready. Therefore, I'm not ready. Right? And having the 70-year-old as your matchmaking client gives me hope. I'm freaking 61, Phyllis. Yes, my body doesn't look 61. I don't have facial enhancements, wrinkles that I wish they weren't as pronounced, but they are, and I'm fine with it. Other than that, I'm a healthy woman, married for a long time. I think I know the dance of the relationship, and I'm talking for myself. I met potential partners that I'm not going to say they were intimidated, but they were not par to me. Doesn't make me stronger than they are, even though that's the right word to say. But we were not the match, period. So instead of trying to fix, dimming my lights to make his equal or vice versa, I waited. I stepped aside and I said, I'm ready now, which I am. So that's my experience. I haven't dated in United States like many born here did. It was a little bit a learning curve to kind of get the vibe of how this society dates. In Europe, it's completely different, very straightforward, direct, no games. I'm not going to call you if you don't call me, or if I call you, you're going to say I'm all over you. None of that. If I'm interested, I'm going to let you know. You'll know about it. If I'm not, same way. What do I want? I want a partner, a man to be man, and me to be the woman that is right for the man I'm looking for. I'm open. Matchmaker, please bring me a match.
I'm actually looking today for you and a couple other people. I've just been so busy. It's been crazy. But yeah,
Look, I did my
I think that you are ready. And I think the piece of looking at what you have attracted, if you haven't already done that, is really good. Just, yeah. But I think it's helpful to have an intermediary looking at people because I know you, I know your preferences, I know you very well, and I'm going to look at someone differently than you are. And so that was helpful for me just to get out of my own way. So
yes, and it shouldn't be that hard. And yes, we are in our 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and higher. We still want to have love in our life as a partnership. We do have love from other sources, but I want to have it from my partner. Right?
well, it's possible, and I think you're in a good place. And we don't have to be 100% sparklied up in all the areas. We just kind of need to know where our pieces are. And yeah, I'm vulnerable here, and I have this over here, but I can do it. I'm ready, and I might stumble, but it's okay. I'm going to get up, dust off, and move forward. And that's good enough. It's more when we're really blind to what we're doing and our motivations that they can bite us. So yeah. Well, I
So
think
that's my share. Thank you.
thank
That's
you.
my
Good to see you. Let me look at the chat. So anybody else, what's your challenge? What's your concerns? Where are you right now? What made today seem interesting to sign up for and come here today? What's holding you back? What don't you know?
You,
Where do you need help?
this is Nancy. Did I come through?
Which Nancy?
Sartorius.
Oh, hi, Nancy. Yeah, I hear you. Hi, Nancy.
I couldn't get my picture going, but
That's all right. I hear you.
um uh
I've
wow.
got like five Nancy's in my
Oh,
so
okay. Am I your 70-year-old one that you're
no,
talking
you're
about?
not. I have more than one.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 73 and been wanting a relationship for a long time. Um I last night did sign up for eHarmony. And also last week, I canceled Match because I've been on Match for 25 years or more, where I'm always just looking and they don't, when I do email, they don't email back or whatever. And
Okay.
then they keep changing the system and then I don't see anything, or I just look, or I just analyze it and it's never going anywhere, so I just canceled that and wanted to start fresh.
Good for
um
you. That's a good choice. And I've heard a lot of good things about eHarmony for people 60 plus.
yeah, and I may do another one too. I'm open to that. I did just this last weekend go through a discovery seminar for 4 days, which was really good. um Bringing up things about myself and patterns and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
but
excellent.
the but the biggest takeaway from that was it ended Sunday, and Monday morning I woke up and then was in a daydream for an hour, and I was like, and I don't see dreams or remember dreams very much, but I was with a man
Hmm.
and I was just walking and just feeling the emotion of connection and the tingle. And this is what I've wanted and haven't felt in um 30 years or more.
It's about time.
That
It's about
I haven't had it. And then 2 other days, like 2 days ago, I had another little dream. I woke up and being with someone and having that feeling. That one I didn't remember as much, but I knew the connection that I was feeling. And that's what I want to, that's what I want in my life. And that's the feeling that I want, where I can't see pictures or, I don't see it other ways, but that's what I saw twice this week. And that was the biggest takeaway for me.
wonderful. So and I'm glad, and I know you're on the calendar next week, and we haven't
Yeah,
talked in a very long time.
right,
So great. Well,
right.
can't wait to hear more and do more with
Yeah, yeah. And another thing is what I discovered is I don't show up. And so that's why I wanted to tell you guys. I, send back and not do it. And that's the same thing with men too. I don't, you know, go out and say what I want or something like that. So
Well,
putting yourself
a funny
out.
story. And because she's not here today, I'll say the story. But this person I'm referring to, another 70 something, one of her patterns is playing out where she says, I'm afraid he's going to leave me. That's her lifelong worry that her partner will leave her. And then, but she was feeling a little overwhelmed. And then she was like, I'm going to tell him not to come over. But in the same sentence, the self-fulfilling prophecy versus her telling him not to come. It's like we can make these things. We do have self-fulfilling prophecy. So, and it can play out late in life as well. She's been dating more than you have been dating, but I'm really excited about you being excited.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Nancy. Well, I'm glad you joined us today, and I will talk to you next week for sure. But
Good.
stick around because I'm sure you'll hear some interesting things from the other women here.
Yeah, sure.
Joe didn't show up today. I was kind of hoping Joe would show up. It's like 1 in 10, 1 in 15 men in my, show up and they can show us what the unicorn looks like, the spiritual man. Right.
Mm.
Okay, anybody else? We're sort of answering the questions. I just kind of posed them to you. So they
Hi.
see, hey.
So let's I joined in late, obviously, so I don't remember all the exact questions. But I actually, you're gonna laugh at me, talked with Lance for like an hour the other night.
Oh, wow.
Normal thing. He was like, I love you. And then he did his like run away. But I was much, it doesn't phase me anymore, situation. So I think I've grown quite a bit in that area. And I know there is that connection, but he's not ready for it. So it's in that corner. I think I've come to the point where, and we've been talking, I do have the confidence. I know what I have to offer. And so there's the quiet confidence, but I more question, like, are the men around here to, it's not that I'm not ready and it's not that I don't know what I have, but I haven't seen it around me able to step forward, if that makes sense. And I would still think when you're talking about vulnerability with Josh, it's hard because how do I lead that dance when he's in this kind of vacuum at the moment? Do I just let it be?
No, it's just when you have an opportunity to interact that you are your vulnerable self, or when you feel motivated to interact that it's vulnerable and truthful. It just gets people respond to that. And, these are really good questions about, is it around me either energetically or geographically? Those are real questions.
Yeah, geographic part that I'm more.
No, and I remember when I first started dating, I really don't resonate with where I live. My family lives here, which is part of why I live here. But I resonate with certain other parts of the country. Like there's like, wow, look at all those. I did find someone, thank goodness, but it took a while. But and this is why, even like in the matchmaking, and I had another client to ask me this last night because I found someone who's about 2 hours away, but he's willing to relocate. But people in this age range and a little bit older than you, they're willing to get up and go because they realize they're not finding what they want in their geographic locale, and they're willing, they're ready to do it. So, but I think you are ready and you've done an enormous amount of work and continue to really work on your presence. So I'm super optimistic for you. So yeah, I don't see an issue here. And in terms of, and those of you, Lance is a boyfriend of hers who's been a major love interest, and they've been apart for a while now, but they still come back together now and again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Your questions? Where are you at? Is there something I can help you with? Or just telling your story, because I think it's useful to see where other people are and what people are going through. There's some similarities and there's some differences. Erica, did you unmute on purpose?
Yeah, I think I'm ready to talk.
You look cozy. I want one of those.
I'm cold, but I'm not. I'm cold, but I'm not. It's the stupid menopause stuff. So I have a couple things to address. One is that something I've learned about, like with my ex-husband being 25 years older than me, is men really don't change. My ex-husband, who is wonderful in so many ways, he's a great provider, but he's a dog, and he's always going to be a dog. And it is what it is. He is wonderfully supportive of me and loves me in his way, but he would never, ever, ever be faithful as a husband the way I would want him to be. And it's just who he is. And I've realized that it doesn't necessarily matter what the age of the man is. That's just who they are. Maybe that's not true, but that's my perspective.
That's actually pretty true. After, men don't change much after about age 38, 39. That's pretty much it. Women, we blossom, grow, we're turning into all kinds of things. But that's us. We're wonderful. That's why they're lucky to have us. Men are so lucky to have us. They really are. And I think if we remember that, like, they're lucky that I'm even dating them.
So I think one of the things he's taught me is don't try to find a fixer-upper. Just accept a man as who they are and embrace that. Secondly, I repeat a lot of patterns So this past year, I've done a lot of work inside, and a lot of work with my daughter. And one of those was like a DBT therapy, which I actually found extremely beneficial. Where it's if I see a situation, instead of reacting, I pause, internalize it, and then respond. But I've been able to actually really see things when because I have a tendency to get super attracted to and excited about someone pretty quickly, but I'm able to like kind of see things pretty quickly also, which has been good because instead of me going too deep with that person, I can kind of just like cut the cord and move on.
Yeah.
And then, so I think one of the things that's been a challenge of mine is that's why I wanted to write down all these questions is I don't necessarily think I'm really clear about exactly what I'm looking for in my life, because I'll see certain qualities in men that I'm attracted to. But if I think I need to be more specific, like down to, what size shoe they wear. I mean, that's kind of a joke, but it's like, I think I need to be so specific.
Well, let's work with that first. But I think what we need to focus on the most is our values and then our interests and our likes, because our values, how we choose to show up in the world. That's why they say if you go out to a restaurant and someone's rude to the wait staff, it's like, no, it's like you want to see how someone, do we share the same, do we approach life the same way or mostly the same way? Because that's going to be the day to day. Somebody's going to not put the toothpaste cap back on. Somebody's going to be messier than the other. Someone's going to have different spending habits. But if you value how you show up in life and you're honest, like you and your ex-husband obviously had enough in common. You stayed together for a period of time, but you had that core, is that integrity? Is that character? Is there something else? I don't know. But there was a schism there that was irreparable, right? So for you, I think someone who has a lot of integrity and values loyalty in that way. I mean, he's loyal to you in different ways, just not with your heart. And so that would be something I'd be really looking for. And then it goes into the interests, and then you can go on to the shoe size, I suppose. But it's so funny about the whole appearance chemistry thing, because a lot of times, especially with online dating, which is such a weird thing, but most people said, I would never have dated my partner or my husband if I saw them online, but I got to know them in person and the energy was what it was. So, but values and interests, I think that's where you begin.
That's really smart because I'm taking a break from online dating. It has not worked out well for me at all. But like even the guy that I'm currently seeing, if I was just walking down the street, I wouldn't have, looked twice. But it's all the other things. It's the way he shows up, his intelligence, his emotional IQ, intellect. It's all those other things. And I have to break out of my habit of, well, it's been 3 days. Why haven't I heard from him? And I'm learning to just kind of ride the wave and be busy. And there's a reason.
Yeah, and it's also like, why do I need to hear from him in 3 days? Oh, do I just miss him? Or, do I miss this person? Or am I worried that I'm not good enough? I mean, but riding the wave is another way, but.
Yeah. Well, I have been doing a lot of internalizing.
Wonderful.
But I only like to get to know one person at a time. I'm not like a multi-dater person because I have a life, and I have kids, and I have a career, and I have myself. And if I'm dating multiple people, how on earth can I spread myself too thin? But when I have that downtime, I have to learn to be okay with being alone, which that's something that I'm learning to do is learning. I know, surprising. being better at being alone when I'm not with my friends or I'm not with my kids or, just
Well,
that.
and what's interesting about that is this is one of the reasons people end up staying single because they get good at being alone. And they're like, well, I'm actually fine. Do I really want someone disturbing? I'm coming in and leaving laundry on my floor and making a mess in my kitchen. And anyhow, but that's great because then you really are coming at your connection for the connection and building something together. It's not from some other place of need. So that's great. It's wonderful.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Awesome. Is that a blanket or a bathrobe?
It's a blanket.
Oh, it looks so cozy. Okay.
Whatever. I'm organizing my room and
Let's see. Chris Myers would like to talk if you can unmute. You do not have camera. Thanks. Let's see if I can unmute you, Chris. It says I have to ask you to unmute. So I've asked you. So if you can see that, you can unmute. I don't know if you're on a phone or a computer. Usually the taskbar is down at the bottom of your screen. And if you move your finger or wherever you are, so let's see. Let me see what this says. Well, I'm trying. Ask to unmute. Let's see if I can unmute you myself. I'm trying to look. I'm not sure why you can't unmute. I guess you could type me your question in the chat. Um, well, while Chris is trying to figure it out, somebody else can go and hear where you're at and just kind of if there's anything you feel like you want another set of eyes and ears on your current situation or what you've been struggling with. Julie, are you wanting to talk?
I'll be brave. Okay, so I take it you can hear me?
I can hear you and see you.
Okay, so as you know, I'm divorced, but I'm sprung on him. And I just feel like anybody I meet, not that I'm dating, but no one holds a candle to what I had, I guess. But then obviously, if it was so good, we would not have divorced. So I feel extremely confused and I don't want to waste my time being stuck on him necessarily, but I'm not doing well pushing past. So, and then hearing that men don't really change, then I'm like, wait, how exactly was it? Like, I don't remember the bad as much as I remember the good. So I'm a stuck soul.
Well, not really. You feel stuck, but you aren't. I think that um, some men change, and some men will change a little right at the divorce, during the divorce recovery, because they're in so much pain and they're forced to get some awareness because they're so miserable. And I think your situation is pretty classic for a lot of divorces that people divorce before they're ready. They haven't really, you have to work your way out of a relationship. And if you don't do that, you're just like, F you, F you, F you, you're an asshole, and I'm done. And we're trying to get relief. And then they have all this unfinished business. And I think that's the case with you and your ex. That's why I feel very confident that at some point those energies will have to come back together to get greater completion. So what you should be doing, I mean, you have so much going on in your life right now. Just be really patient with yourself, really forgiving and really loving. And then the more you can look at why did we press end it so quickly? What caused me to have this flirtation elsewhere? Really do the 360 on it so you're developing your own self-awareness. So when the time comes, you two can have some conversations. Then you'll find out, can we really put this thing back together? Or is this just unfinished business and now we finished it?
Yeah.
But you're going through a lot, so easy does it. Easy does it. And I like that you have some career things you can focus on right now, because that's really positive and that's just for you. Nobody can take that from you, and that's your strength.
Yeah.
But you guys will finish your business at some point and you'll continue healing. You'll continue healing.
I'm not patient.
Oh. Okay. Well, then you can develop, that was one of the things on the to-do list, is that we need to develop patience. And the more we can just say, well, this is what it is. Can't fight City Hall, so I'm just gonna stay here right now.
Okay,
Is
thank you.
that helpful? Yeah. Anyhow, good to see you. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Let's see. Don't know why. Chris says, I don't know why I can't unmute, but we can talk another time. Let's see. Are you there? I keep asking you to unmute. I'm just not sure why it won't unmute. I don't get it. I don't know what kind of device you're on. Just say, well, you are welcome to chat me up in the chat room. I'm not quite sure why. I don't, never really had that happen before. Okay, so anybody else who hasn't chimed in? I see there's a few of you there who haven't spoken. I'm happy to give you a point of view, or you can share your story. Oh, Karen, hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone. So when I have started thinking about exploring a relationship, I think, well, you need to fix this and you need to fix that and you need to fix this because as you were saying, it's like, well, I figured out how to do this by myself. You know, what exactly is it that I'm willing to open up and, be flexible about? And then I sort of realized, no, that may be the wrong attitude. I need to find someone who will be accepting of me. And I am not sure how well that's going to fly, I mean, uh, not only in my experience are men pretty narcissistic, but people are pretty narcissistic. And I don't know. So that's sort of where I am right now, feeling like, well, no, I don't want to come at this with like, well, what do I need to change to be, noticed or acceptable or,
I love that. I don't think that you have to change who you are, for sure. You're amazing and lovely and one of the most sweet, sensitive humans and a healer. Oh my God, the list goes on. So I don't think you, Karen, are the issue. I mean, you have a lot of fears, basically. And so that ability to be vulnerable and open up will certainly be important. I mean, when we're going to partner, yes, we have to compromise. And someone's just like you're really afraid and trepidatious about the process. Men have their own fears. And so it's not just us. And so that's where that patience piece comes in. And then mainly just being the feminine presence and understanding that you very likely have more wisdom. You very likely are going to have more depth. It's just a fact. But men will up level when they see the path. So if you understand that you're the light in the dynamic, they will come along, but it requires that you kind of show your light to begin with. And so that requires you being a little more open and really seeing how wonderful you are and being vulnerable. And these are tough things to do.
I often wish that I could sort of step out of myself and maybe see myself through a man's eyes, through a partner's eyes. Like, how do I show up to people? Because I
Well,
almost
here's
feel
here's
invisible.
what the way men mostly are. Are your clothes on or are your clothes off? They're pretty darn simple at the end of the day. Are you uplifting me or are you making me feel like crap about myself? They're very simple for the most part. They're not nearly as critical of us as we are of us, or as women can be toward other women. They're very simple for the most part. Now there's a sect of men, we'll just call them assholes for lack of a better word, but oh, she needs to be this and she needs to be that. But that's a whole different type of thing. That's just flat out immaturity. But the average good guy, which is all I deal with when I'm doing my matching, I never would present a woman with someone who's not a good guy at his core. They're just clothes on, clothes off. Is she nice to me or not? Is she easy to get along with or not, for the most part? Done. But we tend to get all wrapped up in, I have too many wrinkles, or I'm 5 pounds bigger this year, or whatever the thing is. And none of that really matters. And I think when we really show ourselves, I mean, you have this amazing healer sensitivity piece that is really significant. That is your pay dirt when it comes to a man, because you show them that, and wow, you'll have a lot of them looking for you.
But do I want, sort of at my age, the sort
Your
of
age.
question, well,
What
you
is
know,
your age? I don't know. If you
I'm
want to
like
say, you don't have to.
a minute and a half from being 72.
Okay, well,
So
I have two other people in their 70s and one I've been working with, and there's no issue. And you're in the same category. You look fantastic. You're vital, everything. And she can have as many dates as she wants.
there's that kind of feeling like, well, you can be the nurse or the purse,
There's
so
your
just
purse.
nurse or the purse. So basically you can, hook up with some old guy and he's going to get sick and you're going to have to take care of him. Or somebody who like ran out of their money and you're going to have to take care of them. So
So you're worst case scenarioing yourself. Okay.
I suppose, but not without reason.
Well, but of course, a couple of things. With regard to online dating, only about 30 to 35% online are viable. There's two-thirds, just know that it's labor. Sorting through, learning how to read the profiles and the person, going through the qualification process, but it's only about 30%. Most of it, people don't know what they want, people don't know where they are, scammers, hookups, liars. So just knowing going into it like that. And the other thing, you can meet other people other than that. I mean, there's groups, I mean, activities, especially in older life, there's a lot more of that, social groups, just partaking in an interest. Not spiritual stuff so much because it tends to be too heavily loaded up with women. But I have a couple of men in my spiritual community, but I've got him earmarked for somebody else right now. So, but I think you don't want a worst case scenario yourself, like, oh, this bad thing's going to happen, that bad thing can happen. Rather, just know what your values are. Like I talked to Erica, what your interests are, what direction, what you would hope to find, and then start looking for that. And if the person you're talking to doesn't have those, if the person's not honest or they don't seem to be on the same page about what they want in their experience, then we'll just pass. But sometimes people are so needy and they want that love and they're just going, oh, that person likes me, and they're going to sign up immediately for that, and then they have an unpleasant experience. But that doesn't have to be you. For me, for you, I just want to see you open up again. I want to see you open and show that beautiful heart of yours, because you are so special. I mean, the way you treat people and the way you are, oh my God, it's so lovely. And if you would let people see that, oh my gosh.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you very much.
Well, it's true. It's not a compliment. It's true. So, I mean, are you feeling readier to come out and play?
I think so.
Yay. I mean, and what a great time of life to do it in, when your responsibilities are fewer. And maybe someone will have the similar resources to you, maybe they won't. But usually at that time of life, 65 plus, most people at least have a stable something that makes their life work. They're not coming to you to be a sugar mama. And most men, certainly from that generation, they don't really want that anyhow. I mean, a man doesn't want a woman to take care of him. There can be an exchange from time, but they don't feel good about themselves if a woman is paying their way. They don't like that. I mean, granted, sometimes I have a handful of women clients who their income is way up here and the man may be lower. Like they may make 7 figures and he only makes 6. And then it's like, well, it's like, do they manage their finances well? I mean, it really becomes about that. But I wouldn't worst case scenario yourself. I'd be focused on what you want to create and try to have some fun with it and feeling like a woman again. It's fun to flirt and play and think about sex and holding hands and having somebody sit by you on the couch and fight over what movie you're going to watch or what butter on the popcorn or not. I mean, these are fun things. And you've certainly mastered being alone, so there's no lose here.
Yeah.
And the woman that I've been matching, she's back east, she's 74. And I do have to admire that she's just all about it. And I just loved it when recently she's like, oh, he was such a good kisser. I just loved it. I just loved it. It was so like, yes, we're still women. We still like all the things in our 50s, 60s, 70s that we liked in our teens and 20s and 30s.
Thank you.
All right. Great to see you. Chris, you got unmuted. Where are you?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Hi. Did a lot of dating, online dating, and when I lived in the Bay Area, of course, that's where we met, and now living in Central California to be near my sister. And so I guess the last time I spoke with you, I was dating someone named Stan, just to kind of jog your memory a little. But I'm definitely open to starting anew, and your program looks fantastic. I'm thinking of buying the whole enchilada. And, because I think also with your special abilities, you'll be able to steer me and all of us ladies and men to the right person because of your special gifts. And I love that idea.
Well, it is. I'm not, when I'm looking at someone, I mean, I am looking at that and them intuitively for sure, but I'm looking for someone else. So it's like I'm not having the biases that we have when we look for ourselves. And I'm not having to look through your filters of your fears or your childhood wounding or whatever. I'm just looking, oh, this is a good person and they're this kind of way. Oh yeah, and Chris is that kind of way. And this is how I do it. I recognize a good person when I see one. I didn't always for myself, but but I can certainly do it for others at this point too. But
Absolutely.
it is helpful if we haven't been able to cultivate that and we feel kind of stuck to get another set of eyes. It's useful. I admit it. That's kind of
Yes.
why I started doing it. I never thought I would be doing this, but it sort of just, I kind of said, all right, I'll do it. And that happened last year because I was so many people. I was like, all right, you meet you, you meet you. Why can't we just meet each other? So we'll see
And
where the path takes us, my love. And I'm glad you're feeling ready to open up.
my handicapped son still lives with me, and I'm not letting that be a deterrent because I'm just trying to be open to everything.
Well, that's yes. And you're going to be looking for someone who has the kind of values, very compassionate and understanding, and has no issues around, your son, for instance. I have people who are, their kids are not old enough to live out of the house yet. And so they need someone similar who still values family and understands those commitments. So that's the type of person you'd be looking for. I mean, someone who always wants to travel a lot and get on an airplane at a moment's notice, that's probably not your person. You're not going to be able to do that. And then he's going to be traveling alone. So it's just little things like this when we start to look at potentials.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you could unmute. Um, did everybody speak who wanted to speak today?
Hi, Phyllis.
Hey, who's this?
Oh, this is Sonia.
Oh, Sonia. Hey. All it says
Hi.
is Zoom user. Okay.
Oh, well, Well, you pretty much know my situation. I go back and forth between ready to date and waiting until my health is in a better spot right now. So,
Well, and with you, I mean, it's your health challenges is akin to someone with emotional challenges to the degree that we don't have to be 100%. None of us ever are. It's when you feel you have the energy to take it on. If you're going to be doing online dating, you know that's labor intensive. So,
yeah.
and then you need to be ready to be able to go meet someone for lunch. Right? And you guys know that I'm anti-coffee date. I am so anti-coffee date. But you need people to go out and meet someone and feel like you're ready to cultivate. But that's just an energy level thing. I mean, we all have different health things going on at different times. So if you wait till you're like a 10 out of 10, you could be waiting a long time.
Yeah.
But you know when you have more energy than others, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times the ones that I meet online, like the first date, I like to have those like out to do, go for walk dates. Because I can shorten the walk or I can lengthen the walk. But
Well,
like right now, I'm in a walking boot, so that's
right.
obviously not possible. So,
Well, I'm going to answer this question while you're still on it in case you were wondering. But Karen's saying, why are you anti-coffee date? Well, if the woman suggests a coffee date, that's fine because you may have your reasons. But if the man suggests a coffee date, it's for a couple of reasons. One, he's probably a serial dater and or he's cheap and he doesn't want to pay for even a lunch. But for me, it's like if you're actually trying to date to meet a potential relationship, then you want to know them enough and have enough of a rapport through texting and phone conversation before you meet that you feel comfortable sharing a meal. I mean, lunch is not that big of a deal, that you're going to sit down face to face and then he's going to pay for your darn meal. And if someone's not willing to do that, I think that's why they're a serial dater. They've been on hundreds and hundreds of dates and they're not connecting and they're probably just looking to see if you're a hookup or they don't know what they want or they're just cheap and neither one. But if the woman suggests a coffee date, that's okay. You might have your reasons. Maybe you're like, but again, I would be examining, do you get enough information through the texting app and then following up on the phone call before you meet to know, yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. And I do want to have lunch with this person. And if you don't feel comfortable enough to have lunch, then I'd be asking why on that. But if you are comfortable with a coffee date on the woman's suggestion, I guess, there's always variations from the general rule. Anyhow, I thought maybe you were interested. Have you done coffee dates, Sonia?
yeah, I've done a few.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's why I wanted to answer it while you and I were exchanging.
Yeah, I've had some good ones and some bad ones, but coffee dates, I like it too because you can shorten the time or lengthen the time.
Yeah, well, you can do that with lunch too. But well, yeah, but again, if the woman suggests it, it's just what I have found on the dating apps is that men are trying to rush, rush, rush. You haven't even found out, like, okay, might as well just say it. If you're on a dating app, there's a few things you need to know before you ever meet someone. First, you need to know what they're looking for. And there's ways to ask it. You don't have to be an interrogator like a district attorney, and but you need to find out, what do they actually want? Do they want a relationship? Or are they just are they casual? If they say casual and maybe, and they're staying open, no. If they say, no, I'm looking to build a monogamous, committed relationship. That's what you're looking for. And then you want to find out how long it's been since they've been in a relationship. Because most men, it takes them a good 3 years. But not that they can't be ready before that, but you want to find out on what condition is their relationship in. And if a person says, oh, I'm best friends with my ex-wife, red flag. big red flag. I mean, if they're still raising children together, yeah, that's good that they're getting along, but it usually means that she ended it. And then he's probably still in some way lamenting over that loss. And she's like the ideal. And maybe will anyone ever measure up to that? And so, or if they're like, oh, she was an F and B and I can't, she was this and she was that. And we're like, oh boy, then it's all her fault and he had no part in it. So you kind of really want to get a sense, how they're feeling about relationships and if they've healed from that. And I think if you get those two pieces and then the conversation is flowing and he's readily answering your questions and letting you know that he's interested in you and he'll tell you anything you need, then you always want to get on the phone before you ever make a date with someone. You never want to date and say, because they'll try and get you off the app and say, oh, hey, can we go meet for coffee or lunch? And you're like, God, we just matched. I don't know anything about you. And then often when you hear their voice on the phone, you can see how the conversation flows. And from that point, then you can go have your date. I think the only time I never got on the phone with a man was because he was hard of hearing. So he didn't talk on the phone. But that was a different story. Anyhow, back to your specific question, Sonia, it's like when you feel you have the energy and the desire, that's when it's time to start again.
Can I make a comment or
Yeah.
maybe get your thought on this?
Yeah.
And I remember Sonia from our previous groups. How do you, I was a big fan of doing a FaceTime conversation before a first date, especially on a dating app. And if they weren't willing to do that, then I didn't want to even meet them in person. So I found that when I did do that, I had better luck, even though I'm not on the apps anymore. I had a better first date when I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like FaceTime or Zoom or any kind of video chat. And if it's from the app, that's fine too. So are you feeling more ready now, Sonia, or are you just still mulling it around?
Yeah, I think once my foot heals, then I'll be ready. Thank you.
Well, and again, if you want to go take a little walk outside because of germophobia or whatever, that's fine as well, as long as you suggest it. But a date should be a date. I mean, and going for a walk is not a date. I mean, it could be a second date or a third date or after a lunch, I suppose. I don't know. I'm just wanting people to treat dating like dating, not like a hit and run, right? That you do enough qualifying on the text, on the app, and on phone or devices that you got a good sense that, well, this is an interesting person. I really think I want to know a lot more here.
Can I add something
Yeah, go ahead.
to the to the FaceTime or Zoom calls before meeting in person? I want to reserve that as a surprise after we connect on a voice-to-voice kind of level. We have each other's pictures, given that they're not, touched up too much or whatever. But then what if the light hits me in the wrong way and he would say, oh, no. Or, if you meet me in person, we can develop or continue to grow that connection we had via voice.
Well,
Yes.
I actually think the voice before you meet is more important than the video.
Yeah.
Video can be important too because
Yes.
women lie mostly about their age, men lie mostly about their height. But I mean, I actually had a client once who was 60, one or two, and he was constantly putting photos on dating apps that were 20 years old. And then he'd go and see the women, and they're like, their face drops. And yeah, that happens. And so, but I think a lot of times, just through conversation, you'll be able to tell. And a lot in this day and age, people are saying on the dating apps, photos are current or photos 2 years old, 1 year old, 6 months. So you can get a sense. But I think when you hear the voice, that's
Yes.
the other thing. And I think the older you get, the more forgiving you are with people's appearance, because your appearance is also, gravity has taken hold, right? So it's as big a deal as long as it's not a 20-year age difference from the photo.
Right. And I met someone online a few years back. We connected well. I was forgiven on certain areas that otherwise I wouldn't. Just because I was open, and I kind of resonated enough to pursue the next step. And yes, he asked for FaceTime, and I said, "You're so close to me. Why don't we meet instead?" And he chickened out by saying that he's not part to my wardrobe style and he is old fashioned. And I said, "I'll take you shopping. I love spending other people's money." Eh, And, so he was open to that, but still backed up. And he came back after 8 months, and then he completely disappeared. And I said, "Oh my God, okay."
Well, you see, I think Erica's point is really, really good. Why wouldn't he get on a FaceTime? Or, I mean, I hear what you say, FaceTime is less forgiving than some other apps, or, use the app on the site, but it is what it is. And
That's right. Well, yeah, like the midlife dating book. I need to get good at it and reacquaint myself with that. And I learned the tips offered today. And I know I'm an easy dater, but like all of us, we have our values. We have, if I can see 70% of my wish list, you're it. And I hope you see that too. And to you as the man. And also, yes, there are non-negotiable things that I will never date someone alcoholic or drugs or not even pot, or other things. But I'm pretty flexible, and should be not a big deal to meet someone. But hey,
well,
who am I to say?
I think readiness is a huge part of it, being ready and being attentive and, just going into it ready to be vulnerable. And, if you're doing an online dating route, then it's labor intensive, but there are good people online, and it can happen. But there's other ways to go about it too, which was in a whole nother video. It's on YouTube if you want to see that, meeting people offline as well. Well, thanks, Florence. I appreciate that. I think everybody spoke at this point, and unless anybody has anything else they want to chime in, we're at the end of our time, and I think I've hammered into your head everything I wanted to hammer in for today. And and I have the intuitive matchmaking group on Facebook if you're interested, because I'm posting videos in there almost every day, because not everybody on my page wants to hear about dating and things like that. So I made a separate group for that. So anyhow.
You're going to FaceTime someone for the first time, do it in front of a window where the light is on you.
Okay, thank you. Good.
I have a window on me right now. I have, I'm a mess. I haven't washed my hair for like 5 days.
I wouldn't FaceTime unless I was outside, because FaceTime is not very forgiving. But all right, guys. Well, it's great to have you here today. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, and happy dating and love. And I'll see you and talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. We love you.
Bye.